Welcome to another episode of the Marty Chronicles, right here on the Conservative Take platform. Thanks for joining us. A lot of stuff going on, as always, you know that. As you might have noticed about me, I like to give some context to things, and I want to do that right now for just a minute. Because we're talking about Disney and everything going on with Disney, and I believe it's fair to say that really, unfortunately, Disney is the tip of the iceberg. So let me back up a little bit. I don't know if you've ever heard this name before, but there was a man named Alexis de Tocqueville. He was a French historian, political scientist, and writer. He was a member of the aristocracy in France. This was back in the 19th century. Now, like many others at that time, he recognized that the era of the French aristocracy ruling everybody was coming to an end. And he was curious as to which direction things would go from there. So he and a partner came to America in 1835. Now, he actually did more writing. Many of you are familiar with one of his writings, and I'll talk about that in a second. But he did more than one writing. One of the first things he wrote was a treatise about slavery. And that's a pretty good topic for another time, not today. What I really want to talk about is his seminal work called Democracy in America. That, remember, French aristocracy, and he comes to this largely agrarian land called America, mostly unsettled. And he wants to see what's happening here because we have this incredibly radical experiment going on called democracy. I understand we're technically a Republican form of government, so bear with me. I'm using that in a colloquial sense. And people like de Tocqueville have never imagined something like that, let alone seen it. He wants to see what it is. So he comes to America and he tours America for a while. And he puts down most of his remarks in Democracy in America. Lengthy read, but it's well worth it if you have the time and the inclination. Later on, he actually writes more than that. He does more writing than that, and he writes something, and this is really what I'm getting to. Tocqueville writes something incredibly powerful. He says, America is great because America is good. And he says if she ever stops to be good, she'll cease to be great. And he goes on to write that he searched the fields, the farmlands, looking for good. He searched the schools. He searched government. But he found out that the American people were basically good. And that was what led to the greatness of America. So it's important to remember that, especially the second part that I mentioned, if America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. And that's kind of where we're at today. Most everybody is familiar with what's going on with Disney. They have stuck their head into a place where it doesn't belong. Florida passed a very popular and a very simple law that was signed into law by Governor DeSantis. And it simply said that kids through the third grade are not to have sexuality discussed with them. That seems so simple. What normal human being wants to talk about sex with a kid that's not their own when they're 4, 5, 6, 7 years old? Who does that? That's a horrible thing. But it's actually kind of controversial to say that today. So Florida passes this bill. And even as they're passing it, naturally rebranding takes place right away. And the elite, the people in the know, our betters, they immediately rebrand it as the Don't Say Gay bill. And they start putting up billboards. It's just ludicrous. The bill doesn't even mention gay. It simply says kids through the third grade, you are not allowed to talk about sex with them. And again, there is a time and place in America where that would make sense. And if certain parents found out that their child's kindergarten teacher was talking about sex with them, they would handle it, and they would handle it quickly. So Disney has been in the news now because they have kind of put their CEO in a position where he has to take a stupid stand and say they're going to work to get this overturned. Now, while this is going on, ironically or tragically, some Disney staff members in Florida were arrested on child trafficking charges. And, again, this is more of that context. Remember, it was just a few months ago, a woman, a socialite named Ghislaine Maxwell, was convicted of, among other things, human trafficking. So, great. She was convicted. It seems, she hasn't been sentenced as of this moment, but it seems that she'll spend certainly the rest of her natural life in prison. But there's a part to that has never made sense. She was convicted of trafficking children to nobody, evidently, because while she was convicted, nobody else was even charged. It doesn't make sense. So we have that going on. We have a lot of talk. Certainly people, you're foolish if you don't recognize our southern border has been under attack nonstop for the past year and a half. And a big part of that is human traffickers. They're smuggling people back and forth. So we have that going on. Now, back to Disney. We've also had Zoom calls leaked of management at Disney proudly saying that, yeah, we sneak sexual stuff into all of our movies. Done it, gonna keep doing it. And different things like that. We also have a variety of school teachers in Florida and other places just saying, I'm not gonna do it. I'm going to still keep talking about it, and that's just all there is to it. And part of it is, it's exhausting. Most of America really wants to live, raise their families, and live their lives. But we're stuck. We're stuck because the basic good of America has been gone for a while. And so as it's gone further and further, that moral credibility has been dissipated. People who don't really want to are forced to get involved in political fights that they don't want to. And it's unfortunate. This fight that I'm talking about with human trafficking, children being sold, bought, and used as horrible, horrible things, it's been going on for a while. And we've put off this fight for so long in America. We've avoided it for so long. If we elect Trump, if we elect a Republican Congress, if we do this, that, and the other thing, it'll work out. It hasn't worked out. And the one thing that should be clear by this time is that the bureaucracy, if you want to call it that, is so entrenched in education, in the DOJ, in the FBI, and in a variety of other, certainly in corporate areas like Disney. It is so entrenched that the battle is already lost there. You can't, it's hard. It's hard to go and fight these things because so much of it, the battle has been fought and lost because so many of us ignored it. By the time you view this, it's possible that Judge Jackson may already be confirmed to the Supreme Court. And again, more and more comes out about her leanings when it comes to sex offenders. She can't define a woman, can't tell you what that is, couldn't say what natural rights are when asked about that, but she knows for sure that sex offenders typically get the wrong end of the deal. Now, let me just add a little asterisk here, especially when it comes to people in various states that are in jail or in prison for that. It's not always what it appears to be. There are people that are charged as sex offenders and locked up for a long time for urinating in public, mooning someone, which was, if as a kid, kind of a time-honored tradition that you do that at some point. That's not what you think of when you think of a sex offender. So in some cases, we've overreacted, in my opinion, but not in a lot. So now we're going to have someone on the Supreme Court that is very clear. The only thing she's been clear about so far is that she's got a soft spot for sex offenders. She's probably going to be confirmed by the time you see this. At the same time, the president, I'm not going to get into a whole lot about that. There's certainly tons of video of the big guy groping, even fondling young girls and young boys. You make your own decisions on that. That's not my point. But out of the clear blue sky, earlier last week, the big guy comes out with this bizarre, certainly unscripted statement that we all know somebody who has, been videotaped naked and someone is using it to blackmail him.
So we established a new civil rights cause of action for those whose intimate images were shared on the public screen. How many times have you heard, I bet everybody knows somebody somewhere along the line, that in an intimate relationship, what happened was the guy takes a revealing picture of his naked friend or whatever in a compromising position, and then literally, in a sense, blackmails or mortifies that person.
Out of the clear blue sky, he just comes out with that. Yesterday was Transgender Visibility Day, I think, and he fell all over himself with that. He fell all over himself. Really, I think whoever's writing his tweets, because I don't believe it's the big guy for a second, whoever's writing them, you can sort of see the agenda, because at one point they put the words in his tweet that you are made in the image of God. That's true. We're all created in the image of God. But Genesis 1, if you've never read it, says he created the male and female. It's very simple. So anyway, he does that. We also have the military coming out with a lot of stuff like that about how inclusive they are and how inclusive they're going to be. And one of the things that the president also made a comment on via Twitter was it's more important than ever for transgenders to take their place in education, in sports, in the military. And if you think about it, he's really naming three very, very important parts of American culture. Sports has dominated American culture mostly for good, but mostly good has come out of it for a long time. The military. Did you ever think you'd see this day? There was a great tweet last week. I didn't send it, but I saw it. Somebody saying, in China, third graders are learning calculus. In America, third graders are not sure if they're a boy or a girl, or they're being told not to be sure. You see what's happening in Russia as they're training their kids in Muslim nations, where they're training them for some nefarious stuff. These are all things that our kids, our grandkids, are going to have to deal with and are going to be completely unprepared to deal with. And this, again, coming back around to the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop. Yeah, the big guys, the smartest guy, the big guy knows. Again, as I'm speaking right now, people are going through those emails and pictures, and they're trying to sanitize them, because the word leaking out, and I haven't seen it, the word leaking out is that they're just horrific in the things that they show, sometimes with child pornography. Why is this all important? Again, come back to my original premise. If you believe what de Tocqueville said almost 200 years ago now, that America was great because America was good. I believe that. And I believe there was a time when America was good. You saw it everywhere. Everywhere. In the inner city, in the countryside, you saw it everywhere. America was good. We believed in the same basic things. Those days are gone. There are pockets. There are still pockets of it left. But until we come back around to where we recognize that America has to be good again, it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. The big guy is messing things up, but it doesn't matter in the long run, because you can't overcome it if you don't go to that fundamental thing. I hate it. I hate it because, again, most of the parents I know don't really want to be involved in politics. They don't want to be going to these school board meetings. They have to. They don't want to take their kids out of programs. They have to, because it's not safe for them. We got to make a decision. I'm going to leave it right there. We'll see you next time on the Marty Chronicles.